Oh, yes. Yes. We're back. We're ready to go on the eve of the dance, as March Madness is upon us. The final game of the first four is taking place wearing the Miami Red, as the MAC gets two bids this year. Two bids. Akron winning the MAC championship, the MAC tournament, and Miami of Ohio having an undefeated season, losing in the quarterfinal to UMass. But they're in the first four tonight in Dayton. We'll take a look at that. And let's take a look at the brackets, as the All-Indy Alfred Bracket Challenge is now open. How about our Jackets? How about them Jackets? Continuing to get points and points and points. And we're coming. We're coming for Detroit. We are coming for Detroit. While the Walleye trade another player and take 3 of 4 on the South road trip, now having a big matchup this weekend against the Monsters of Lake Tahoe. Baseball is in full swing. We'll talk about what's to come with baseball. And Eddie George's recruiting class, fantastic. Going into this upcoming football season. Spring practice is underway for our Bowling Green football. Lots to get into. Lots to discuss on the post St. Patrick's Day edition of All-Indy Alfred right here on All-Indy Alfred. And with that, I say, I love you guys. And welcome into another edition of All-Indy Alfred right here on your exclusive home for me. And that is with the All-Indy Alfred Podcast Network, whether it be on Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Bleaker, however you listen to us, wherever and whenever you listen to us. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for tuning into the show tonight to hear what's happening in the sports world as well as what's happening in your everyday life. You can always be a part of our show by following us on Twitter. It is at All-Indy Alfred. It is at All-Indy Alfred, as well as Facebook.com/All-Indy Alfred, as well as on YouTube with the All-Indy Alfred YouTube channel, YouTube.com/All-Indy Alfred Hangout. So welcome to the show tonight on this, the 18th day of March 2026, coming to you from the Man Cave Studios here in beautiful Toledo, Ohio. Of course, lots to get into tonight, of course, on the podcast. We'll get to the housekeeping here in just a second, as well as diving into this big week of college basketball, of course, with March Madness. Of course, we'll dive into what's happening on the diamond with baseball. Of course, the World Baseball Classic coming to an end. Thank God it's over. And also, we finally have got some dates down for you guys for the podcast, for the show and the podcast going forward. So there's that. Also, we are on the eve of another show for yours truly. We'll dive into that and so much more. So thank you for tuning into the show. And remember, like and subscribe if you're on our YouTube channel, as well as give us a follow and subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to us. So housekeeping-wise, now this show was supposed to be taking place on the 5th of March in Columbus, but me and the wife, we had a good time in Columbus. We got a chance to take in the Jacket game against Florida. Did not get the chance to do the double. Wife was not feeling too well, so we canceled it, of course. But, it is what it is. We got a chance to go to Columbus, got to experience the city, take in some new sights, new smells, new sounds, and it was fun. I got to give credit to the Drury Inn out there in Polaris. They do a fantastic job, and the room was perfect. The breakfast was great. The kickback service was fantastic. Got down to Nationwide. Got to see our boys take the W over Florida the day before the trade deadline. Of course, in the pickup of Connor Garland from the next night, next day was fantastic to see. And the Jackets have been on a winning ways ever since. But we'll get into that here in just a second. But it was a fantastic trip. Got to give credit to that. Now, back to the real life situation. Now, Tomorrow and Friday, yours truly will be back on the stage at the Toledo Repertory Theater. Now, before we get into that, of course, there is some news on the Rep, of course. We've had some of these bad windstorms the last couple days, last week and so. And Friday, the roof from the costume room in the Brown building flew off. It's still, the roof is still intact, but the protection for it is no more. And water is starting. They're worried about water seeping into the roof and ruining these priceless costumes. Please, if you are in the Toledo area and you're not doing anything Thursday from 2 to 6 p.m., Thursday, the 19th of March, head down to the Repertory Theater. They're going to move the costumes from the top floor down to the main floor where the water is not going into, and they're going to be storing the costumes there until the roof is repaired. Of course, the insurance is going to take over, but if you want to make a donation, ToledoRep.org for that. If you come and help out, my good friend Joe, who is putting on Toledo Voices, part of the Repertory's Toledo Voices of 2026, will give you a complimentary ticket for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday's performance. So please come support the Rep, help them out, help with the move process going forward from the roof situation from 2 to 6 p.m. tomorrow at the Rep Theater. The more help, the merrier. And again, they are accepting donations as well too. And with that also, I'm going to be back on stage tomorrow night for a special show. It's called Reply All by Eric Puffinger. It's a great show. It's an absolutely fantastic show, funny show. You'll absolutely laugh your ass off. We are the opening show on Thursday. We are the closing show on Friday night. So get to see me at the start and you get to see me at the finish. If you come Friday, you get to see me at the end. If you come on Thursday, we open the whole kit caboodle. So yes, ToledoRep.org for ticket information. Plenty of tickets for tomorrow, plenty of tickets for Friday. Come support local playwrights who are from this community, making their stage debut and making their voices heard. Toledo Voices 2026, ToledoRep.org. So there is the plug there for the show for tomorrow and Friday. And remember, please come down to the Rep Thursday afternoon from 2 to 6 to help out the Rep in the process of moving costumes from the top floor down, and they are taking donations. So please, ToledoRep.org for more information on tickets as well as how to donate to the Toledo Repertory Theater. So yeah, looking forward to doing the show tomorrow. Great cast. It's going to be fun. Get your tickets right now, ToledoRep.org. And the show tomorrow, 7:30 tomorrow. 7:30 on Friday, and Saturday they'll have the show at 7:30 as well. So a great lineup of shows. Come and support local theater. Now, as well as you're talking to a local podcaster. So there's that. Programming note. Wednesday, the day before opening day, the 25th of March, a preview of the Major League Baseball season will take place. That will be this upcoming Wednesday. Not this one, not today. Next Wednesday, the 25th. Yours truly, Lucas Sigerson, and Logie Bear Carr, the triangle discussion for the 2026 MLB baseball season. We're going to cover everything. Our predictions for the season, our thoughts on the World Baseball Classic. And you'll hear my thoughts a little bit tonight about it, but I'm going to go more in depth when we get to it. I'm going to have the three gentlemen with me. And, you'll get my take on the Tigers, get my take on the Guardians and the Reds, as well as all the guys' others' decisions, as well as who we think is going to be lifting the Commissioner's Trophy. Could be the last time we could see the Commissioner's Trophy lift. And we'll talk about that as well. On Wednesday, the 25th of March, the MLB preview show will take place on that date. So schedule your calendars, get ready for opening day, which will be on the 26th, but the night before, right here on all the Alfred Podcast Network, we're going to have the roundtable discussion when it comes to that. So there's that. Also, note again, no opening day podcast for all Andy Alfred. We will be in Detroit that day. Jackets, Red Wings. It's that Tuesday night. It's a 7 o'clock puck drop. We will be at Little Caesars Arena for that game, and that is turning out right now to be a possible win, and you're in the playoffs situation. And I'll get to that here in just a second why I say that, but yours truly will be there. We will be there. My wife will be there. Logan and his significant other will be there. We will be taking that game in, and a whole bunch of crew. We will be there at the Slice for the game on the 7th of April. So there is a programming note on that as well. We'll also talk a little bit more on the Masters that's going to be coming up as well. And, of course, the first Saturday in May is the Derby, and we'll have Lucas back on for that. But again, this upcoming Wednesday, MLB Preview Edition. Other than that, of course, you can see my hair cut. Face is cleaned up a little bit. No glasses tonight, of course. Of course, the soundproof still working good. So let's get into it. Let's talk some hockey. We're going to start first and foremost with the Jackets and what we witnessed, and then we will get into the NCAA tournament, as well as talk a little bit about the Walleye and the World Baseball Classic, as well as what we're seeing so far in the season so far for spring training for baseball as well too. So there's that. Let's get into it. Jackets last night, huge win last night against the Carolina Hurricanes by the score of 5-1. A dominating performance by the team. Of course, Matthew Olivier with a big fight at center ice. He got a goal, did not get an assist in the game, but the Jackets are rolling right now. Out shooting Carolina in the game 30-29. They scored pretty easily in the game. Mason Marchment getting the first at the 5:25 mark of the first. Then Charlie Coyle on the power play, making it 2-0 Jackets. After 20 minutes of play, Carolina's Andrei Svechnikov breaking in, beating Jet Greaves to make it a 2-1 game. And then Denton Heinen, coming in off of the trade from Yegor Chinnikov, comes in, gets his 100th goal in the National Hockey League, his 4th of the season, making it a 3-1 Jacket lead. And the Jackets then pile it on there as Matejchuk gets his 11th of the season from Monahan. And then, like I said, Olivier getting the dagger, his 13th of the season from Coyle and Sillinger. 5-1 Jackets. That was the final yesterday at Nationwide Arena. The Jackets continuing their dominance so far, and continuing what I think, this team is for real. Like I said, Jackets are outshot Carolina 30-29. Jackets led in the faceoff dot 65% to 35%. Columbus 2 for 5 on the power play, while Carolina only 0 for 1 in the game. Carolina out hitting the Jackets 29-11 in the game. And like I mentioned before, it was a dagger of a game for Jet Greaves. Greaves in the game for the Jackets. A fantastic outing. Fantastic outing for Jet. He stopped 28-29, save percentage of a point, .966 for Hurricanes. It was Busty at the crease, stopping a 25-30 save percentage of a point, .833. So the Jackets, a huge win over the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, this is continuing this 3-game homestand, and it's 2 big games going forward with the Jackets, which will be tomorrow night at Nationwide Arena with the New York Rangers coming into town. The Rangers falling to the Devils tonight by the score of 6-3 as we're taping this podcast. That game has just gone final. So the Rangers are now 5-3-2 in their last 10 games. The Jackets 6-0-4 in their last 10 games. Of course, the thing is with the Jackets, they keep finding ways to get points, and that's key. If the Jackets keep finding points and keeping points, they're going to find themselves into the playoffs. I really think so. And the play of Charlie Coyle has been fantastic. Fantilli's been great. You have the star in Kirill Marchenko. The goaltending is finally figuring itself out between Elvis and Jet Greaves. I think it's all working. Matthew Olivier becoming both the dominant on defense as well on the ice, as well as a goal scorer. Fantastic. And then you have the supplementary players like I said, the Denton Matejchuk last night getting the goal. Of course, Mason Marchment coming in. Big move for the Jackets early on in the season is finally paying dividends in this end. I just want to see more from Cole Sillinger. I like to see Kent Johnson get into the swing of things as well too. Get his play getting back up. If they can do that, I think that they have a great possibility of not just getting into the playoff position, but getting into the divisional playoff round where they can play an Islanders or a Penguins or knock somebody out of there to have them come into the wild card race. Because you can look into the standings into today's play as they're playing right now. The Jackets are 35-21-11 with 81 points. In the Metro, the Islanders are 39-24-5 with 83 points. The Jackets are there. They are there. And we'll look at the Island. We're going to look at all the schedules for the rest of it as well, too. And Pittsburgh is there, too. 34-18-15 with 83 points. Jackets, again, 35-21-11 with 81 points. The top two wildcard spots are the Boston Bruins, who are 37-23-8 with 82 points, and Detroit, who are 37-23-8 with 82 points. Those two are going to play each other this upcoming Saturday. That could be a play and you're in game for them. And here's the key thing. Here's the key thing too. Jackets will at tomorrow night's game will still have 2 games at hand. 2 games at hand against the other opponents. Islanders, like I said, playing tonight. Are playing Ottawa tomorrow night. Detroit is playing Montreal. Montreal is trying to hold on to the third spot. They're trying to hold on to the third spot. Boston is hosting Winnipeg, and Winnipeg is not a pushover either. So there's a strong possibility tomorrow that the Jackets could get into a playoff position going into tomorrow's game. Now, after Columbus with 81 points, it's Ottawa, who's 34-23-9 with 77 points. 77 points overall. So there's some work to be done in that run. But it's all shaping up pretty good right now for the Jackets. The Jackets just got to keep playing, keep getting points, and keep finding a way. You can't just lose 2 games in a row. You just can't. And by the way, Pittsburgh is playing Carolina tonight. They're in overtime. Pittsburgh got a point. Kind of figured that was going to be. Ottawa is playing Washington. Washington is up 2-0 on the Senators. Just now underway. Carolina and St. Louis. In about 15-20 minutes, it will be Dallas and Colorado. Could be a possible preview of the second round of the playoff matchup. Philadelphia is in Anaheim to play the Ducks. So there is that. And again, I going down the stretch for Pittsburgh going forward, it looks like this. We're going to look at all the schedules for everybody, and I wanted to go for it right now. Through it right now because it's huge. It's absolutely huge for Detroit. We'll start with Detroit first. They have Montreal, Boston, Ottawa. Then they're at Buffalo. 4 games right there. 3 of the 4 games are playoff games. Buffalo going to probably win the Atlantic Division. They're very, very good this year. It's because of Justin Danforth and that crew up there. They're very, very good this year. Boston, very good team. Montreal, very good team. And Philadelphia's not a pushover. And then they're in Pittsburgh. That's not a pushover schedule going forward. Boston. You look at Boston's schedule going forward. Winnipeg tomorrow, at Detroit, home to Toronto, who's a joke this year. And I am so disappointed in the league with how it handled the Austin Matthews situation. And it kind of feels like to me that it's time to start making some moves and move Austin Matthews on that. But I digress. At Buffalo, at home against Minnesota, then they're in Columbus on the 29th of March to take on the Jackets. So there's that one. You get into Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has Carolina in overtime right now, home to Winnipeg, home to Carolina, home to Colorado, at Ottawa, and home to Dallas. Tough matchups for the Penguins, who are just now getting Sidney Crosby back in the lineup. So there's that. Then you have the Islanders. The Islanders have Ottawa tomorrow, at Montreal, at home against Columbus on Sunday. So coming from Montreal back to play Columbus. Chicago, Dallas, Florida. Tough matchups for the Islanders. And the Jackets could get themselves into that race going forward. So there's that. There's that going forward. So again, Jackets, keep winning, getting points. Keep it going, boys. And Rick Bowness is doing a fantastic job. I thought Dean Evason did okay at the trade deadline, and we have some questions going into the offseason. Who's staying, who's going. So we'll see. We'll absolutely see on that run. So there's that with regarding of the National Hockey League, of course. And as you're watching and listening to All Andy Alford tonight, right here on the All Andy Alford Podcast Network. And if you look at other teams, if you look at the rest of the standings, like I said, the standings right now, Carolina, Pittsburgh, the Islanders are the top three. In the Atlantic, it's Buffalo, Tampa, Montreal, Boston, and Detroit are the top two wildcard spots, with Columbus on the outside looking in. Western Conference, Colorado in the Central leading, Dallas, Minnesota. What's surprising to me is how bad the Pacific Division is. Pacific, with Anaheim, 37-27-3 with 77 points. They're leading the division. Edmonton, 34-26-9 with 77 points. They're second in the division. Vegas, 31-23-14 with 76 points. They're in the division race. Utah, the Mammoths, 35-27-6 with 71 points. The three teams well, there's a few teams that are battling for the wild card spot. The one team that's in the wild card race right now, second spot, is the Seattle Kraken at 31-27-9 with 71 points. The Kings are there too at 71 points, but they have the Kraken have the head-to-head matchup over them with 71 points. San Jose's is 32-28-6 with 70 points. Nashville 30-28-9 with 69 points. And Winnipeg right there at 28-28-11 with 67 points. These teams are still in it. So we still have less than a month of the play before we start the finale of the National Hockey League, which is the Stanley Cup playoffs. So we'll see how that all shakes out. As you are watching and listening to All Andy Alford tonight right here on the All Andy Alford Podcast Network, whether it be on Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Bleaker, however you're listening to us tonight, wherever and whenever you're listening to us. Thank you so much for tuning into the show tonight as you are watching us right here. And now let's hit the pond. Let's talk a little walleye hockey while we're at it. The walleye on a south road trip. I saw 2 games in Savannah and 2 games in South Carolina. Now, getting into the first game, which was on Thursday, they go to Savannah. They play the Ghost Pirates at Edmark Arena and get the big win. They win 5-3 over the Savannah Ghost Pirates. Of course, Garrett Van Wright coming in off the play, getting the first goal of the game at the 17:30 mark of the period. Then Brendan McCallie getting his third of the campaign, making it a 2-0 walleye lead. Then Jackson Weebly for the Savannah Ghost Pirates getting his fourth of the campaign at the 19:48 mark of the period, right before the end of the period. So you figured that maybe, just maybe, Savannah could take the capitalization, and they don't. As Rachel Mosley from Cruz at the 6:32 mark of the period makes it a 3-1 lead. Then Riley McCourt gets his 6th of the campaign from Tanner Dickinson and Johnny Walden. It's a 4-1 walleye lead. In the third, Savannah capitalized at the 7:19 mark of the period with Dennis Cassine getting his sixth of the campaign, making it a 4-2 game, but then Garrett Van Wright getting his second of the night, 12th of the season at the 12:22 mark of the period. Puts it in the dagger. Savannah capitalizes, tries to get back, but they can't get it done. Savannah falls to Toledo by the score of 5-3. Toledo outshot Savannah in the game 41-38. In the game, penalty minutes were both teams were 0 for 2 on the power play. McCourt, the third star, Tanner Dickinson, the number 2 star, and Garrett Van Wright was the number 1 star in the game. And then you get to Friday, and of course the big surprise was Brandon Hawkins getting the call up to Grand Rapids. He gets the nod to come up to Grand Rapids to play with Dan Watson and the Grand Rapids Griffins that don't get to play that hockey game, and we'll get to why here in just a second with that. But Friday, the Fish went into South Carolina to take on the Stingrays, and like Steve Irwin, they got taken out by the Stingrays by the score of 5-1 in the game. It was, of course, South Carolina. Caden Boston getting his 18th of the season on the power play. It was all South Carolina in the second period. They were up 4-0 after 40 minutes of play before Will McKinnon gets his first of the season from Sawyer and Van Wright. But the damage was done. The Fish could not capitalize, and they do not win in South Carolina on the opening night, and they fall by a score of 5-1. Toledo did outshoot South Carolina in the game 30-26, and South Carolina was 2 for 3 on the power play. Toledo was 0 for 3 on the power play, 4 goals in the second, and 1 the dagger to put it in the third. And Dylan Moulton in this game, a 5-minute major for cross-checking, a double minor for roughing, and a game misconduct. You can't have that happen in this league. Can't have it happen in this game. But it was not just him. Tyler Cooper gets the double minor for roughing, but he was not kicked out of the game. Carter Guylander, 21 of 26, was the starter in the game. Only 4,282 in attendance at the North Charleston Coliseum. You get to Saturday, and the Fish find a way, and they get the job done. They win 4-3 over South Carolina in a shootout. It all started, of course, with Mitchell Lewandowski getting his 9th of the campaign 24 seconds into the game. And then Roman Radusky getting his 6th of the campaign for South Carolina. It was 1-1. Colin Keaton getting his 5th of the season from Nate Roy and Tanner Dickinson. It's 2-1 Fish. But then Ludwig Pearson getting his 8th of the campaign for South Carolina, tying the game after 20 minutes of play. South Carolina capitalizes in the second at the 9:30 mark from Ben Hurachuk, getting his 6th of the campaign. Brian Moore, the former Fish, plays with South Carolina, gets his 2nd assist of the season from Hoffner, his 10th assist of the season. It's 3-2 Stingrays, but Tanner Dickinson at the 9:51 mark of the third period capitalizes, and he gets his 18th of the season from Johnny Walden and Riley McCourt, and the Fish tie the game up. They go to overtime. Nobody scores in overtime. South Carolina shoots first. Kyler Kepna misses. Then Denise Saradoff misses. Dean Lucas misses. And then Garrett Van Wright capitalizes. Makes Ben Hurachuk try to make it, and he does not. And the Fish survive, split the series, and South Carolina with a 4-3 win. Toledo out shooting South Carolina the game 29-25. It was Toledo 0 for 3 on the power play, South Carolina 0 for 4 on the power play in that round. And then Sunday comes along. We hear that on Monday that Brandon Hawkins goes back down to Toledo. They dropped his contract. He comes back to Toledo. He meets the team in Savannah for the final game of the South road trip, and he provides the spark. He helps out the team as Sam Craig capitalizes on the power play in Savannah at the 8:44 mark of the period. Then Brendan McCallion getting his fourth of the campaign for Smirnoff, making it a 2-0 game before Brian Borowski getting his 12th of the season from Matt Koopman. It's a 2-1 Walleye lead after 20 minutes of play. And then Riley Funk gets his first professional goal with the Fish, his first of the campaign from Lewandowski at the 5:39 mark of the period. And Nicholas Severance gets his 22nd of the season unassisted. And the Fish are still up by the score of 3-2 after 40 minutes of play. Colin Keenan getting his 6th of the campaign, a minute 50 into the third period before Connor Gregan gets his 5th of the season for Savannah. Ryan Sullivan, his 11th of the campaign, gets the game to tied up at 4 apiece. And then Tanner Dickinson getting his 19th of the campaign just 20 seconds later after Savannah ties the game. Dickinson from Van Roy and Walden. And that was the final as the Fish, a 5-4 win over Savannah. They take 3 of 4 on the South road trip as the Fish come back to the hunt this weekend. Toledo out shooting Savannah in the game 45-29. Toledo 1 for 2 on the power play. Savannah 0 for 1 in the power play. Skylanders 25 of 29. Vinny Perpera 40 of 45. 7,485 in attendance on Monday evening in Savannah, Georgia. So there is all that. That is your recap of the Fish from this past weekend. Huge weekend for the Fish. Now, this is a huge weekend. This is a big test for the Fish. Here's why I say that. Toledo will welcome in the Lake Tahoe Night Monsters for a 3-game set at the Huntington Center. This is the first time that Lake Tahoe has come to Toledo. Their second year in existence, they are affiliated with the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Lake Tahoe is 29, 25, 2-3 with 63 points. They're a threat in the Western Conference, in the division that is the Mountain. Right now, they are holding the Mountain Division. Holding it in third spot right now, if I'm not mistaken. Third spot, if I'm not mistaken. But don't quote me on it. I want to make sure you guys are right. Get the right information. Holding the fourth spot. They'd be the fourth team in the playoff spot right now at 29, 25, 2-3 with 63 points. Kansas City has already clinched the playoff spot at 46, 10, 2-1 with 95 points. They're going to win the division. With the 3 wins that the Walleye had this past weekend, they are now 36-14, 4-4 with 80 points. Fort Wayne is in second at 34-15, 9-0 with 77 points. Indy is 28-21, 8-1 with 65 points. And Bloomington, 28-25, 2-2 with 60 points. Cincinnati is close at 28-26, 3-0 with 59 points. And Kalamazoo, 26-25, 3-3 with 58 points. Now, before I get into continuing this playoff discussion, I want to make the mention that I was the first one to tell you guys right here on this podcast, on this show, that the Iowa Heartlanders were going to be suspending their organization at the end of this season. I told you guys this was going to happen. It was announced while we were on break for a little bit that they are suspending operations at the end of this season. So, again, I will say, my reliable source is reliable when it comes to that. Iowa is no more after the end of the season. So that means that we're going to have a shakeup. And I told you who I think is going to come into our division, and that's going to probably be the Wheeling Nailers. Wheeling is the right spot for this team. It blends in with all the rivalries between Cincinnati, Toledo, Fort Wayne, and Indianapolis. It all blends into that. So it's an easy win-win situation when it comes to that. And with the new team out of Albuquerque coming in from Utah down to Albuquerque, it's going to be fine. We're going to be fine. So there's that. So anything probably west of Bloomington, Illinois, is actually going to be the Western Conference. Just going to put that out there. So if the playoffs started today, Toledo would play Bloomington in the first round, and Fort Wayne would play Indianapolis. So just putting that out there. Kansas City would play Lake Tahoe. Idaho would play Allen. You would have Wheeling, who is really good this year. Really, really good. That game at the end of the season that's going to be the makeup game, going to be very, very interesting. It could be a set test for the Fish going into the playoffs. Because Wheeling's 36-16, 3-3 with 78 points. Maine's right there at 33-16 and 6-2 with 74 points. And Adirondack 32-17, 7-1 with 72 points. And Reading is 30-26-1 with 67 points. South Division, Florida clinches a playoff spot at 40-13, 6-2 with 88 points. South Carolina is in second, 38-18, 1-2 with 79 points. Atlanta 37-18, 2-1 with 77 points. And Savannah 28-26, 3-1 with 60 points. You were chasing the race for the Brabham Cup. It's going to probably be Kansas City this year again. Kansas City, like I said, top spot there first. Florida second. Toledo is in third. South Carolina is fourth. Wheeling is fifth. And there's no chance that Toledo's going to catch them. They have to get 15 points. They do have 2 games at hand with Kansas City right now, looking at the standings here. And they do have 2 games at hand, but I don't see the path for Toledo to get the Brabham Cup this upcoming season. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. So there is that for you guys. So the Fish on the ice, 7:35 puck drop Friday night. If you're not going to go see our great show, Toledo Voices, head down to the Huntington Center, 419-725-WALL, ToledoWalleye.com, or head down to the Swamp Shop for all your tickets for the games this weekend at the Huntington Center. 3 games against the Lake Tahoe Night Monsters, the affiliate of the Vegas Golden Knights. As you're watching and listening to All Andy Alfred tonight right here on the All Andy Alfred Podcast Network, whether it be on Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Bleaker, however you're listening to us, wherever and whenever you're listening to us. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And now it's time to break down the brackets. It's time to tear down the nets. It's time to go dancing. It's March Madness, baby. It's time for the big dance. It's time for the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Of course, right here on the All Andy Alfred Podcast Network, you can be a part of our challenge. Now, the brackets have to be set in by 12:15 tomorrow afternoon. 12:15 tomorrow afternoon. Brackets have to be set. And you can be a part of the All Andy Alfred Bracket Challenge by following us on the ESPN Tournament Challenge page. Type in All Andy Alfred Bracket 2026. All Andy Alfred Bracket 2026. And you'll be on the page. Also find it on our Facebook page. Get your picks in by 12:15 tomorrow afternoon. That's when the brackets will close. The winner of the bracket challenge will be on the podcast. And you get lunch on me. And bragging rights for the season. So, big slate of games, of course, tomorrow on the slate as everybody starts dancing. It'll tip off 12:15 tomorrow as Ohio State takes on TCU. Ohio State 2.5-point favorite in the game. The later game, 2:50, we'll see the number 1 overall seed Duke Blue Devils taking on Siena. The winner of that game will play on Saturday afternoon. You also have in that same bracket, 5th-ranked St. John's taking on Northern Iowa. Kansas and Cal Baptist, the winner of those two will play each other. I look at the games on tomorrow between the 6-11 matchup between Louisville and South Florida. The winner of that game will play the 3-12 winner of Michigan State and North Dakota State. That's a huge matchup right there. And then, of course, UCLA and UCF 7-10 matchup. The winner of that game will play the 2-15 winner, which is UConn or Furman in that round. And that is the the East bracket. You look at the West bracket, it's Arizona and Long Island, the 116 matchup. Villanova, Utah State, Wisconsin, and High Point will be tomorrow at 1:50. The winner of that game will play the 4-13, which is Arkansas and Hawaii. BYU takes on Texas tomorrow. The winner of that game will play third-ranked Gonzaga or Kennesaw State. And then in the same bracket, 7 seed Miami takes on 10 seed Missouri, and the 2 seed Purdue will take on the 15 seed Queens. That games will be on Friday night. So that is the West bracket. You look at the South bracket. The number 1 overall seed is the Florida Gators. They'll take on Prairie View. Clemson will play Iowa. Those games will be on Friday. Tomorrow afternoon, 5th ranked Vanderbilt in the South bracket will take on McNeese State. The winner of that matchup will play the 4-13 winner, which is either Nebraska or Troy. That tip will be at 12:40, so that will be after the Ohio State tip. And then you have 6th ranked North Carolina taking on 11th ranked VCU. The winner of that matchup, this is the 6-11 matchup, will play the winner of the 3-14 matchup, which is Penn. And then you have St. Mary's and Texas A&M. The 7-10 matchup will play the winner of the 2-15 matchup, which is Houston and Idaho in that matchup, and that's the South bracket region. You get to the Midwest. The number 1 overall seed is the Michigan Wolverines. They're going to play the 16 seed, which is Howard. That will be tomorrow night, 7-10 on CBS. The winner of that matchup will play the 8-9 matchup, which is between Georgia or St. Louis. Here's the big one. It will be on Friday, 5th ranked in the bracket. Texas Tech will play the 12th ranked Akron Zips, who won the Mid-American Conference tournament. They are playing at 12:40 on Friday. The winner of that matchup will play the 4-13 matchup, which is Alabama and Hofstra. And then you have 3rd ranked Virginia playing 14th ranked Wright State on Friday, 1:50 tip. They'll play the winner of the 6-11 matchup, which is going on as we speak right now, as we're on the air. The final game of the first 4, which is taking on the Miami Redhawks, who are 31-1. Their 1 loss coming in the conference tournament. When they lost to UMass, we're at the half, and Miami of Ohio is up 43-34 on SMU. I'm telling you this. If Miami of Ohio wins this ball game, I think they can pull the upset over Tennessee. I'm just telling you this right now. 7th seed Kentucky will play 10th seed Santa Clara. That'll be a 12-15 tip. The first game on on Friday. And then the second game of that will be Iowa State and Tennessee State at 12:50. So like I said, at the half, Miami of Ohio up 43-34 on the SMU Raiders. So let's go over a bracket. Let's fill out a bracket together. Okay, let's fill out a bracket together. We'll do this on the air right now. So I will take Duke and Ohio State, St. John's, Kansas. I think South Florida can beat Louisville. Louisville 4.5-point favorite in that game. Michigan State definitely. I think UCLA pulls out the win over UCF, and then definitely Connecticut. So then you have Connecticut taking on UCLA. I have Connecticut beating UCLA. South Florida versus Michigan State. I would take Michigan State. I think Izzo gets his team up for that one. And then in the top half of the bracket, you have St. John's and Kansas, which is a big matchup. If Pitino can get his team going, I think you can make the case that St. John's can win that game. I have St. John's pulling up the win over Kansas. I have Duke beating Ohio State, so it sets up the Johnnies of St. John's taking on the Duke Blue Devils, I have the Johnnies pulling the upset over the Duke Blue Devils. I have St. John's then playing the winner between Connecticut and Michigan State, and I think that UConn gets the better of that, and I think UConn versus St. John's in the Elite Eight goes to that, and it goes in the favor of St. John's. So I have St. John's winning out the East bracket. You get to the West bracket. I'll have Arizona. I have Utah State over Villanova. I have Wisconsin over High Point and Arkansas over Hawaii. I have BYU winning over Texas, and then Gonzaga beating Keyshaw State, Miami beating Missouri, and then Purdue beating Queens, which sets up Miami versus Purdue. I'll take Purdue to beat Miami, and then I have Gonzaga beating BYU, which sets up Purdue versus BYU versus Gonzaga. I'll take Gonzaga in the bottom half of the bracket. Top half of the bracket, I have Arkansas playing Wisconsin. I take Arkansas. I think Calipari gets his team up for that one. And then you have Utah State taking on Arizona. Arizona will cruise to that victory, which sets up Arizona versus Arkansas. I have Arkansas beating Arizona. I don't think our Arizona is going to be... I have not that much faith in Arizona this season. I really don't. I really don't have that much faith in them. So it sets up Arkansas versus Gonzaga, and I think John Calipari and his team gets the big win in that realm. So I have Arkansas out of the West bracket winning there. Get to the South, Florida over Prairie View, easy. I have Iowa beating Clemson. That's a win there. Vanderbilt over McNeese, but I wouldn't be surprised if McNeese keeps it close. We'd be surprised. My upset of the tournament, I think, is Troy beating Nebraska. Nebraska has no faith. I have no faith in Nebraska because of the fact that they have not gotten past the first round of the tournament in their history. And I'm taking the hype, taking the Troy to beat Nebraska. I have North Carolina. I have a VCU beating North Carolina. I have no faith in North Carolina right now. I don't have faith in them. Illinois beats Penn pretty easily, so I have VCU and Illinois, and then in the bottom half, Houston beating Idaho, and then St. Mary's beating Texas A&M close. But I wouldn't be surprised if Texas A&M pulls the upset there too. Right now, St. Mary's is holding a 3.5-point favorite in that game. But I'll take St. Mary's. St. Mary's versus Houston, I'll take Houston. And then it's VCU versus Illinois. I'll take Illinois in that game. And then between Illinois and Houston, I will take Houston in that realm. Troy versus Vanderbilt, I will take Vandy in that one. And then Florida versus Iowa, I will take Florida. Florida versus Vanderbilt. It's easy. Florida easily in that one, which sets up then Florida versus Houston. And I think the Gators get the job done there. I think the Gators are the only number one seed out of the South. One of the few first number one overall seeds to get to the Final Four. Then you have in the Midwest, Michigan easily over Howard. St. Louis, I think, beats Georgia. Texas Tech beats Akron. I have Alabama beating Hofstra. Then you have the 6-11 matchup, which is Tennessee, and right now it would be Miami of Ohio. I take Miami of Ohio over Tennessee, lickety-split in that realm. And then I have Wright State beating Virginia. I do not trust Virginia to save my life. Right now, they are an 18.5-point favorite. If I'm any better, I will take Wright State plus the 18.5 right now. I guarantee I'm going to put it right here on this podcast that Wright State is going to beat Virginia. I am going to say that on this, the 18th day of March. I don't trust Virginia. I will never trust Virginia. They are terrible in the tournament time. They will not get the job done. They will lose in the first round to Wright State. So Wright State taking on Miami of Ohio in their second round. And then you have Kentucky beating Santa Clara. I wouldn't be surprised if Santa Clara keeps it close. And then Iowa State easily over Tennessee State. Kentucky over Kentucky and Iowa State to take Iowa State. Then you have Wright State versus Miami of Ohio. I think the Red Hawks get the job done there. So then you have Miami of Ohio taking on Iowa State. And Iowa State ends the dream for Miami of Ohio there. And then on the top half of the bracket, you have Alabama taking on Texas Tech. I think Alabama gets the job done there. St. Louis gets destroyed by Michigan in that round. And then Michigan versus Alabama, which is a huge matchup. I'm going to take Michigan in that one. And then Michigan versus Iowa State. I will take Michigan to beat Iowa State, which sets up the Final Four, which is Michigan versus Gonzaga. I will take Michigan to beat Gonzaga in that round, which sets up the final. On the other side, St. John's versus Florida. I think Pitino gets his team up for that one. It's close. I will take the Johnnies of St. John's, and that sets up St. John's versus Michigan, and I will take the Michigan Wolverines to win the national championship. They won't take this one away. I think Michigan is the team to beat in this tournament. I have a few upsets. I don't believe a lot of the hype when it comes to it, but I think Michigan, it's the Final Four, is Michigan, for mine. It's Michigan, Gonzaga, St. John's, and Florida. Those four. It looks like a safe play. Looks like a safe play. That's what's in my bracket challenge. And I just did the bracket challenge. Just laid it all out for you. You get two brackets. That's my one bracket. You can see what my other bracket is when the brackets get posted. So enjoy the tournament. This is going to be a fun tournament to look out and look into. It is. Then you look at the women's side of the bracket, the NCAA women's bracket, which I'm going to look up because I wanted to. And this is my show. This is all Andy Alfred for a reason. You look at the women's bracket going forward. Region 1, which is the Fort Worth bracket, you have UConn taking on UTSA. UConn easily. Winner of that game will play Iowa State and Syracuse. I'll take Iowa State in that one. Maryland taking on Murray State. Maryland easily. North Carolina taking on Western Illinois. I'll take the Tar Heels in that one. Notre Dame and Fairfield. I'll take Notre Dame. And then Ohio State playing Howard. I'll have Ohio State in that one. And then you have Illinois and Colorado. Take the Fighting Illini in that one. And then Vanderbilt over High Point, so which sets up Illinois and Vanderbilt. I think Illinois gets the job done in that round. Vanderbilt gets the job done in that round. Notre Dame and Ohio State. I think Notre Dame gets the win over that one in the women's side. On the top half of the bracket, North Carolina versus Maryland is going to be a dogfight of a matchup between the two teams. I think it's going to be close. I'm going to take the Tar Heels over Maryland, and then I'm going to take UConn to beat Iowa State, which sets up Maryland and UConn. I have UConn beating there, and then I have Notre Dame versus Vanderbilt. I'll take Vanderbilt there, which sets up Vanderbilt over versus UConn. UConn gets to the Final Four in that round. In Region 2, you have UCLA and California Baptist. UCLA easily. Oklahoma State versus Princeton. I will take Oklahoma State. Ole Miss taking on Gonzaga. I'll take Ole Miss to beat Gonzaga there. 4th seed Minnesota taking on 13th seed Green Bay. I think Minnesota gets the win there. 16 Baylor takes on the 11th seed Nebraska. I'm going to take Baylor in that game. Baylor is the 6th seed, gets the win there. A lot of people are taking Nebraska. I'm going to take Baylor in that game. They'll play the winner of the Charleston Duke matchup. I'll take the Dukies in that one. And then you have Texas Tech and taking on Villanova and LSU and Jacksonville. This is the women's bracket, by the way. I'll have LSU beating Jacksonville, Texas Tech beating Villanova, LSU beating Texas Tech, sets up Duke versus Baylor. I think Duke wins there. Duke versus LSU. I think I'll take Duke and I'll take LSU in that game, which sets up then UCLA and Oklahoma State. UCLA, and then I have Ole Miss taking on Minnesota. Ole Miss easily, which sets up UCLA versus Ole Miss, and I will take UCLA, and UCLA taking on LSU. Give me the Bruins of UCLA in the women's side of the bracket. Now you get to Region 3. Texas is going to play the 16 seed, which is being determined as we speak right now. The final matchup between Missouri State and SPF Austin. I'm going to take Texas easily. Winner of that will play the 8-9 matchup, which is Oregon and Virginia Tech. Oregon, 3.5-point favorite. I will take Oregon in that game. James Madison playing Kentucky. Kentucky, the 5 seed. James Madison, the 12 seed. To take Kentucky in that one. Virginia takes on Miami of Ohio, the Mid-American Conference champion in the women's side of the bracket, who beat Toledo. I will take the Mountaineers of West Virginia to beat Miami of Ohio in that one, which sets up Kentucky versus West Virginia. I will take Kentucky in that realm, and then I'll have Oregon and Texas. I will take Texas, which sets up Texas versus West Virginia. Texas versus Kentucky. I will take Texas to get to the Elite Eight. Bottom half of the bracket sees 6-11 matchup between Rhode Island and Alabama. Alabama, the 6 seed, I'll take Alabama. The 3 seed is Louisville taking on 14 seed Vermont. I'll take Louisville in that realm. Louisville and Alabama, I'll take the Roll Tide of Bama in that realm. 7 seed NC State taking on the 10 seed Tennessee. NC State 1.5-point favorites. Give me the Volunteers of Tennessee in that realm. And the 2 seed Michigan will take on 15 seed Holy Cross. Michigan will beat Holy Cross and then beat Tennessee. They'll play Louisville and Alabama winner. I'm taking Louisville, and then they'll play Louisville and Michigan. I will take Michigan in that realm. So it's Michigan versus Texas. Ooh, that's a tough one. Give me the Wolverines. Closer to the experts think. Well, that's Region 3 of the women's side. Region 4, South Carolina, taking on a team to be determined. It's the Gamecocks. They'll play the winner of the 8-9 matchup, which is Clemson and USC. Give me the Trojans to beat Clemson, but South Carolina will beat the Trojans there. The 5 seed Michigan State takes on the 12 seed Colorado State. Michigan State 18.5-point favorite. Give me the Spartans in that one. 4 seed Oklahoma takes on the 13 seed Idaho. Oklahoma 34.5-point favorite. Give me Oklahoma in that one. And then Michigan State versus Oklahoma. Give me the Oklahoma Sooners over Michigan State in that round. Oklahoma versus South Carolina. Give me South Carolina in that. That's the top bracket. Bottom half of the bracket, Washington and South Dakota. Give me Washington there. Closer than the experts think. TCU over UC San Diego easily. Georgia plays as the 10 seed, playing the 10 seed to be determined. Give me Georgia there. And the 2 seed Iowa takes on FDU. Iowa 31.5-point favorite. Give me Iowa. I think Iowa beats Georgia. They play TCU. TCU beats Iowa, which sets up South Carolina versus TCU. Give me South Carolina. So South Carolina, UConn, UCLA, and Texas. I have all 4 number ones. UConn beats South Carolina. Texas beats UCLA. And UConn wins the women's championship. Set in stone. Get your brackets in, folks. Get your brackets in. It's time to go dancing. As you're watching and listening to All Andy Alfred tonight right here on the All Andy Alfred Podcast Network, whether it be on Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Bleaker, however you're listening to us tonight, wherever and whenever you're listening to us. Thank you so much for tuning into the show tonight, right here on the All Andy Alfred Podcast Network, of course. Getting into some baseball really quickly, of course. Like I mentioned before, this upcoming Wednesday, we'll have a special edition of All Andy Alfred. It'll be the 2026 MLB Preview Edition with yours truly and our triangle of discussion with Lucas Sigerson and Robert Logie Bear Carr joining the podcast, talking all things baseball, hearing our predictions for the season, our predictions for the who will lift the Commissioner's Trophy, our Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, as well as the MVP for the season. So there's that for you. Of course, last night was the finale of the World Baseball Classic as the United States took on Venezuela, and Venezuela gets the win over the United States. It was Bryce Harper with the home run in the 8th inning was huge, getting the game tied up, but then you had Eugenio Suarez, the Cincinnati Red, capitalizing and getting the run in, and they close out the game. They win, and they win the WBC. And now we go back to the drawing board again for the United States. DeRosa did a good job, but I'm going to say it again. I like the World Baseball Classic, but in 2028, when it goes back into the Olympics, watch. This is going to be fun. It's going to be absolutely fun when it comes to it. And hell, we might be still on strike by then. So we'll see. Tigers fell today to the Pirates by the score of 3-1. Reds had a split squad. They lost both their games. They lost to the Angels 7-4, and they lost to the Rockies 8-6. By the way, if you're wondering, Guardians did not play today. They'll play tomorrow. They'll play the Royals tomorrow night, 9:05, first pitch. A lot of games are now. We're coming up to the end of spring training. We really are coming to the end of the spring training. You look at the overall standings in spring training. This is what it looks like, and we kind of figure out where the rotation's going to go right now. Tigers are 7-12 in spring training. 7-12 in spring training. Their last 10 games are 4-4. So there's that. They'll play the Phillies on the 20th. So they have a couple days off on that run. You look at the Arizona League, the Cactus League, Dodgers 18-8, Giants 16-8, Guardians are 12-12, Reds are 12-14. So there's that round for you. I mean, the rotation for the Tigers is going to look good. I like the rotation for the Tigers this year. I want to know what we're going to look like on the defense, more on the defensive side of things. We'll see how it all works out. But again, I say it again, the World Baseball Classic was great, but it doesn't have the moments like you would see in a World Series or you would see in a championship level. Yes, you're playing for your country, but for me, it's just an excuse for skipping spring training for a little bit. It really is. Really, really is. So there's that. And again, we'll have more baseball coverage going forward as well. So there's that. PGA Tour, by the way, this week they're going to be at the Valspar Championship at Rattlesnake. Victor Hovland, the defending champion last weekend, was the Players. Fantastic outing. As Cameron Young, 13 under par, wins the tournament. Matt Fitzpatrick, second, 12 under par. Xander Schauffele, 11 under par. McIntyre, 10 under par. And Regiu at 9 under par for the PGA Tour event for that. And like I said, the Valspar is this weekend. I'm looking forward to that as we're talking golf right here on the All Andy Alfred Podcast Network, sponsored by our good friends over at Scramble Stick. Scramble Stick, of course, the new Scramble Stick clip attaches to any golf cart that's available, whether it be a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, or the new 1.25 inch is the clip for you. So get your scramble stick by visiting scramblestick.com and also get your scramble stick as well as your scramble stick clip for more information. Of course, like I mentioned before, as we're talking golf, the Fournette Founders Cup that's going to be taking place this weekend for the LPGA, will be in action as last week, as at the end of the March 5th to the 8th, it was the Blue Bay LPGA event took place. The championship, the big one coming up will be the Ford Championship. And then, of course, like I mentioned before, we get into the full range. At the Chevron, the Queen City, the tournament in Cincinnati moves up into May. And then you have the ShopRite. And then the big one, of course, you have then the Women's Open, the Dow, and the LPGA Women's for Meyer Championship, and then the KMPG Women's PGA, and then the Evian. So there's that. But the big news, of course, since we haven't been on the air with you guys, of course, the news that the PGA is coming back to Toledo. They're coming back to play at Inverness 2045. You're 55 years old. Hopefully this podcast is a television show, and we'll be doing the show from Inverness. I look forward to it. I really do. It's probably one of my, like I said, that course is going to be great, especially next year. And we will be there for the U.S. Women's Open at Inverness Club. We will have a full week of shows from Inverness Club for that event. So stick with us for next year. So there's that. Looking forward to that as well. So there's that. Also got to plug in this, of course. Eddie George had a meet and greet last weekend, and as they talked about the recruiting class coming in, the class looks fantastic. They're in spring practices right now. I want to say that next weekend is the spring game. If it's next weekend, you could. I'm going to have to research it and find it. If it's next weekend and the weather's good, I might go. If it's free, because I would like to take a look at what this team looks like. The best recruiting class that he's got out of the MAC. I like to see what's going to happen with that. So there's that. Also, we have with wrestling full-fledged into it now with the WrestleMania coming up. Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton for the WWE Championship. You have CM Punk taking on Roman Reigns for the World Heavyweight Championship. It looks like it's going to be Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar in the Brock Lesnar Open Challenge. It looks like we're starting to get those pieces put together for WrestleMania. Rhea Ripley, of course, is going to face Jade Cargill for the WWE Championship as well. Liv Morgan and Stephanie Vaquer at WrestleMania as well. So we got two great women's matches. You have two great men's matches. Figuring out what fills into that as well. To be honest with you, I felt like Gunther is going to be facing Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam and ending Brock Lesnar's life. Not his life, but ending his career. It makes sense because Lesnar's going to be retiring soon. He's going to get destroyed by Obafemi. So the question is, what else do we find and fill into that card going into this season of WrestleMania? Got to figure it out. We got to figure out what else is going to be down the line for WrestleMania. So there's that. AEW is doing well. The pay-per-view for Revolution was great last on Sunday. Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF getting the huge win. Oh, my hair. Getting the huge win over Hangman Page. I thought the surprise, of course, was Ronda Rousey now in AEW. And she's going to face Toni Storm soon enough. Because those two are on a collision course for each other. It makes sense in that realm. And I mean, it's just wrestling is good. And I'm going to just say this. NXT is really picking up the pace with me a little bit. I'm starting to like NXT a little bit more, especially the women's division. I think they're built more than Raw and SmackDown is, to be honest with you. I think the storylines between Stephanie Vaquer and Liv Morgan are there, and Rhea Ripley and Jade Cargill are there. But after that, Maxine and Natty, we've seen this enough. We've seen enough of. We want to know what the hell is going to happen with Bayley and Lyra Valkyrian. That's going to be interesting. But after that, the tag team championship. I don't like the fact that it's Nia and Lash Legend. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out as we go. So there's that. So you're watching and listening to All Andy Alfred tonight right here on the All Andy Alfred Podcast Network, whether it be on Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Bleaker, however you're listening to us, wherever and whenever you're listening to us. Thank you for tuning in, as well as watching us right here on YouTube. So tonight, as we come to the end of All Andy Alfred, it's time for Andy Rants, and I want to talk about what we witnessed last Friday in Grand Rapids. Of course, with the big windstorms that we've been having here in the Great Lakes, power has been going in and out with a lot of things. Of course, we're blessed here in this house that we have not had any power situations, so that is a great thing. Knock on wood when it comes to that. But of course, in Grand Rapids, Michigan, on that Friday night, they were scheduled to play Milwaukee in their Cancer Awareness Night, and pregame the power went out and the chillers got killed in Van Andel Arena. So the ice surface was starting to melt, but by the time that the ice was ready to go, the chillers were back, turned on, and everything like that. The surface was not safe enough to play on. If you can look at some of the photos, you can start seeing the concrete at the bottom of the ice surface. That's not good. And the corners where the red lines were at by the time the trapezoids and everything were starting to bleed. That's not good. So they deemed it was unsafe to play. And that was Brandon Hawkins' debut as an AHLer. Had to wait a day. And he comes and plays. They play the next night on Saturday, but they have announced they're going to be making that game up soon. So I think it's going to be towards the end of the month, if I'm not mistaken, or beginning of April. So don't quote me on that. I don't follow that much of the Grand Rapids Griffins, but it's good to see Hawkins get the call for that as well. So there's that for you. I want to close tonight with some thoughts on a few issues. We don't talk. I don't talk politics here on this podcast. I don't want to, but I want to say first and foremost that our thoughts and prayers are with the 6 family members that were lost in the battle, in the conflict that we're having with Iran right now. To those people that are against this war and everything like that, just remember that we have helped out so many countries so far, with Venezuela. And with the whole situation with the Gaza situation between Israel and Hamas, we figured that out. We could figure this thing out with Iran and the situation that's going on there. And then we have Cuba losing power, their grid's down. The world's a messed up place right now. Thank God we have sports. And thank God the NCAA tournament's here so that we can enjoy sports for the next 3 weeks, which leads us into the Masters, which leads us into the NHL playoffs, which leads us into the ECHL playoffs, which leads to opening day for baseball. Friday's the first day of spring. We are, as what they say, spring chickens when it comes to things. A fresh start and a fresh look is what's needed. So, there's that. the world today is different when it comes to what to judge a character. Respect is needed in all of everybody's jobs, no matter what the situation is. Whether it be working as a garbage man, working as a warehouse associate, or working as a clerk, you need to respect the job that you have, because 9 times out of 10, especially with the world that it is today, a job is everything. A job means a lot to people. It's a good character or judgment to a person that you have a job, that you can do, that you can work, that you're doing what's best for yourself, for your family, for the person that you care for the person that you love. And you hear the saying that we're a family when it comes to like jobs and coworkers and stuff like that, and it's true for a lot of places. If it's time to make a change or make a judgment call, it needs to be done. And that's all I have to say about that. So we will be back on the air on Sunday night, right here on All Indy Alfred, to recap rounds 1 and 2 of the NCAA tournament. Also take a look at the Jackets. Of course, they have the big game against the Islanders this weekend, and they have the Rangers, Kraken, and the Islanders. Huge games for the Jackets. Huge game for the Walleye this weekend. And of course, like I mentioned, this upcoming Wednesday, we'll have a special edition of All Indy Alfred, the MLB preview edition show for all that as well. And remember, this weekend, of course, Toledo Voices taking place at the Toledo Repertory Theater on Friday and Saturday, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Tickets, ToledoRep.org. Also, come and help the rep. Come and help the Toledo Rep and help them move from 2 to 6 tomorrow afternoon, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the Brown Building at the Toledo Repertory Theater. Help them move to save the costumes and save the rep. Plain and simple. So until I see you on the stage tomorrow night, right here in Toledo, Ohio at the Toledo Repertory Theater, and when I talk to you guys again right here on All Indy Alfred, enjoy the tournament. Enjoy the hockey this weekend. Enjoy the show. And remember, as always, I'm pulling for you. We're all in this together. The game of life. Keep your stick on the ice. And to the teams you root for at home, and to my teams, go Jackets, go Walleye, go Tigers, go Guardians, go Reds, go Hens, go Falcons, go Johnnies, and go Blue. And more birdies and less bogeys, because victory is sweetest when you have tasted defeat. Have a great weekend, everybody. I'll talk to you Sunday night right here on the All Indy Alfred Podcast Network. I love you, babe. Talk to you guys then.